AITA for ruining my mom's engagement party after she abandoned me when I was 11. I, 17M, have a strained relationship with my mom, 35F. After an incident that happened about 6 years ago, my mom was super strict and a helicopter parent, so we fought a lot over my grades and the trouble I got into at school. She had essentially abandoned me, signing over custody to my dad after I had told her something along the lines of, "I hate you," and "I wish I lived with dad," typical things an angsty preteen says to their parent. But that fight seemed to have broke her and she cried before dropping me off at my dad's apartment. I thought it wouldn't be a big deal and I would just see her the next day after she proved her point. But she left me there. After that, things got essentially worse for me. My grades dropped and I kept getting into trouble at school, almost to the point where I was kicked out. My dad never had job security, so money was tight. His GF also wasn't fond of me, saying I was dumped on them. I wanted to go back to live with my mom. I thought to apologize, but my mom had essentially moved on with her life. She went back to college to get her degree and was always studying, and later on was focused on her new work. On the weekends I would get to see her. Things were tense between us. She tried so hard to be the fun parent, eating takeout and leaving me to do what I wanted. But it was so unlike her, and we became more estranged. 3 years ago, she started dating Paul, 39M, a widower with 2 daughters, 9F and 13F. She started treating his daughters like they were her own and they started calling her Mummy, which irritated me. Eventually they moved into my mom's house and changed my childhood bedroom into one of the daughters' room. I was livid when I found out, saying some mean things about the girls, and refused to go back there for my mom's weekends. But she was confused on why I was acting this way. Because of this fight, she thought I wouldn't be attending the engagement party when she announced her and Paul would be getting married. Besides, she didn't want there to ruin the perfect picture of her new family. So I made it a point to go for the party, and called her out on her behavior. I wanted to confront her and tell her she wouldn't have to bother with me after I go off to college. But I may have taken it a tad too far. Everyone kept talking about how Paul's daughters were like her children and how it would be when she had more kids, and it snapped something in me. I called her a horrible parent and told her she was trying to replace me with the little brats after she had abandoned me, along with some other insults I don't really remember. Paul kicked me and my dad out, saying I was an asshole for making his fiancée and girls cry and ruining the engagement party. He said I won't be allowed to the wedding unless I called and apologized. I may have taken it a bit too far, but my dad agrees she had it coming after abandoned a young child at an age when I needed my mother. So AITA, and should I apologize? You say that she was a helicopter parent. Your definition for this is that she would check your homework to see if it's done right, make sure you pay attention in class, that you went to bed on time and ate healthy food, and limited your internet access. Mind you, all of this is what we call good parenting, not helicopter parenting. You started acting out, grades dropping, getting into trouble, all at age 10-11, which is honestly young. Not even a preteen bothered by raging hormones, to be acting out so much that it caused issues with your mom. Then you say there was one incident where you yelled and insulted her and demanded you want to stay with your dad, to which she obviously had a breakdown, shut down mentally, and let you go live with your dad. People don't break down and shut down over one incident. A parent, who by your description was loving and attentive, doesn't do a complete switch from one incident, which is why I do not believe you this was one incident. I believe this was a pattern of toxic behavior you never worked on, growing worse, which is obvious from how you tore in like a raging bull into the engagement party. I never ever in my life ever told my parent I hated them. Not even during my teen angst phase. Not even when I had bad grades and was grounded. So no, that's not a normal thing to do. Either. She broke down and decided to let you have what you wanted. A life with your dad. You say, I was just a stupid kid, I didn't mean it. Well, unfortunately, we can't take some stuff back. You even admit that you never apologized for saying all those horrible things you said to her. You had all the time in the world to reflect on the venom you told her and say, Mom, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean the words I said. On a side note, very interesting how you say your mom abandoned you. But you don't act like your dad did. I mean, she now had the same custody your dad had before. Yet he never abandoned you? He was the weekend dad before. Why is your dad allowed to have a long-term partner, but not mom, too? This isn't going to fix itself. Y'all need to sit down and probably have a serious conversation about how you two want to move forward. Showing up uninvited just to ruin the engagement party was especially cruel of you. However, that's not the time and place to confront her or make amends. You only did that to be mean and petty. It sounds like you want to apologize and make amends. But nowhere in this post have you mentioned making any efforts. Based on your version of the story, I would be inclined to believe that mom did make some mistakes. But in terms of repairing the relationship, it seems like you are mostly to blame for the continuing strife. Someone already said this is above this sub's pay grade. It is very obvious that you have some deep emotional issues towards your mom and you feel abandoned. Ultimately, she is the parent and she has to take the majority of the responsibility for the way your relationship has turned out. But quite frankly, I think you need to really take a look at the role you played in this as well. You acknowledged that you hurt her feelings when you told her you hated her. You just assumed you see her later. Did you apologize to her? You said she tried to do fun things with you on the weekends, but you also said you didn't like that either. At no point do you actually say you apologized to her at all. Instead, it seems like your behavior escalated and you continued to lash out. Your mom could have possibly tried harder, but it seems like she is damned if she does, and damned if she didn't. You have made your feelings of hurt and resentment and abandonment very clear in this post. At what point do you acknowledge that your mom is also a person with feelings and that you may have continuously, without apology, hurt her too? Not sure if I want to call you an AH, but I don't want to call your mom one either. Nah? Oh boy, do you maybe see a correlation between her helicopter parenting of your schoolwork and your grades dropping off once you lived with your dad? This is so far above Reddit's pay grade. Please get therapy. You say she was a helicopter, and it doesn't sound like anything other than, yeah, no, parenting, but with a non-helicopter parent. Your dad. You also weren't happy. She became the weekend parent, and you didn't like that either. She didn't abandon you. You lived with your dad and saw her on the weekends. You then proceeded to be awful to two kids who had nothing to do with you nuking your relationship with your mom. It's a hard lesson to learn at 11, but some stuff can't be unsaid. I hate you isn't actually all that normal to say to a parent. However, she was the adult in this situation and certainly should have handled it better. Were you in therapy before you lived with your dad? Info. Can you give examples of her helicopter parenting style? This is above the pay grade of this sub. You are a child and she is an adult and your mother. She needs to do the emotional work of creating the conditions for your reconciliation. If she can't, you need to focus on your own growth and figuring out how to establish yourself in life. It doesn't sound like she's going to be coming through on that, so you are on your own. That is of far bigger significance than whether you are the asshole or not. Take care of yourself. NTA. YTA. Your dad considers it abandonment that he has to raise his own child. Deadpan face. You should have more issue with your dad than your mom. Your mom gave you what you insulted her for. You having buyer's remorse doesn't change that. She held to her custody time, so you weren't abandoned. First of all, I think you need to speak to her. You both need to sit down and have a serious conversation where both speak about their feelings and such. I wild recommend therapy for you both to work through everything together and try to mend the relationship. But you both need to be willing to do it. I swore I read this before. The ages may be different, but the plot seems identical to another post. YTA. You were not abandoned. You were sent to live with your father. Mom stayed in the picture, but moved on with her life. And that seems to be your complaint. I thought to apologize. But did you? And did you ask to move back? But that fight seemed to have broke her. So what did you say to her leading up to this fight? You need to take some responsibility here. Your behavior was appalling, and she probably thought, well, he needs some male guidance. And she didn't abandon you. You saw her on weekends where she tried to lighten up like you asked. But even that wasn't good enough. You also say you didn't apologize because she moved on. That didn't happen overnight. You had weeks and weeks before that happened. You could have spoken then. But you don't seem to want to take responsibility for any of your behavior. Why wouldn't she enjoy some children who actually treat her nicely? She is probably exhausted from dealing with your constant anger and misery. You just seem determined to push her to the brink to test her love. But guess what? She is human. She has a breaking point. Get psychological help. You need it. YTA. You say she abandoned you, but then say she had you on weekends. That's not abandonment. That's literally the schedule of millions of non-custodial parents in the US. You say she was a helicopter parent, but a lot of what you're saying she did in the comments sounds like normal parenting. You told her you hated her and wished to live with your dad. She obliged. And now you're mad, even though you never apologized for your terrible comments. How much does she need to bend over backwards for you to like her and not treat her like trash? Sounds like she tried, you didn't, and now she's moving on with her life. So your mom gave you the structure and discipline that you needed, and you threw a tantrum and seriously hurt her by telling her you wanted to go live with your dad. She gave you exactly what you asked for, and yet the grass wasn't greener when you jumped ship. Daddy didn't pander to you or care, so you started to get worse in school without your mom to keep you on track. And instead of using your big boy words and expressing remorse for what you said and apologizing and asking to go back to her, you just expected her to know this information. Then, because she had the nerve to better herself and move on from your dad and build a new life, instead of again using your big boy words, you acted like a spoilt, selfish little child and threw a tantrum. You hurt and embarrassed your mom yet again, but this time in front of others, and you want to know if you're the awe for this. Well, yes. Yes, you are. You act like a child and have zero maturity. You put all your failings on your mom, but dad doesn't seem to be getting any blame. YTA. So let me get this straight. Single, helicopter parent, mother is concerned for child's grades and tries to have teachers focus on child. Notices child gets in trouble, so she limits internet access and gets concerned about other children being a bad influence. So she imposes a bedtime and becomes wary of having sleepovers with others. Despite all these efforts going to waste, child tells mother, "I hate you so much. I wish I lived with dad." So the mother, who has tried her hardest to help child become better, decides to give child his final wish and drops him off to dad's place. Now that the mother doesn't have a child to constantly worry about getting in trouble at school and chasing after his grades, She finally gets time for herself, and spends new free time by going to college and finding a new career. After getting sent to dad, child realizes that dad's place isn't actually better, and tries to apologize to mom. Child ends up even worse off in school, and his dad's GF clearly saw that he was a troublemaker, because she doesn't have the motherly instinct to try to change him, unlike his real mother. After child apologizes, mother tries to take back her helicopter ways by leaving up to do what he wanted. But child still doesn't seem to consider this enough, so he becomes more estranged. Once mom starts dating again, she gains 2 stepdaughters who clearly love her, so she takes them into her house. But this offends her biological child because his mom abandoned him, and he decides to project by calling the stepdaughters bratty. Instead of apologizing for all the misbehavior on his end and realizing how much his mom did for him for all these years, he comes onto Reddit to complain about his mom's husband not allowing him to talk back to his mom the way he has been for the last 17 years. Is that correct? If so, YTA. Go get therapy and leave your mom and her new family alone. If any part of you still cares about her, you will realize that her healing journey only started once she abandoned you. Your mom wasn't emotional mature enough to be a good parent because she was a child when she had you. You're a monster with what you described, and quite honestly wouldn't want to be around you either. If everything I did for you wound up being an attack against me, there is such a thing as going too far even as a young teen, preteen. You were technically old enough to know better but chose to act out and hate your mom. Your regret states as much. You're still acting like a monster to her, and you're damn well old enough to know better. Sounds like there is a lot of blame to pass around. Your intentions were completely malicious though, and you have never mentioned once trying to broker a peace between the two of you. So, yes, you are the a-hole. This is a lot, but I think you need therapy to figure out your feelings. Your mom's head must be reeling trying to figure out what you want, because nothing she does seems to make you happy. I don't think you even know what you want from her. You ask to live with your dad. She agrees. You're unhappy. You go back to her on weekends. She plays the fun parent. You don't like it. You start avoiding her on weekends as well. She moves on with her life. You resent her. What do you really want from her? To put her life on hold while you punish her for doing what you asked her to do. YTA. The vibe I am getting is that you are slanting everything to make yourself sound less bad. And you still sound like a monster. You got in trouble at school to the point that your mother couldn't control you, and your father took over custody, which Pikachu faced you. And without her pushing you, you got worse. Then she got into a relationship. And since you weren't living there by your own choice, the room that had once been yours was used by someone else. You haven't mentioned a single bad thing she did. Nothing you have said she did sounds like she did you wrong. She didn't ruin your life. You did. I mean, you haven't. You are 17 and nothing is ruined yet. But you have been an asshole for years. There's a lot of pain coming out as anger and resentment, which you are valid for feeling. Therapy will be very helpful if you are open to it. After a few months with a therapist, then see what you want to do with the situation.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Aircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.